Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this. I guess it's now definitely going to be a weekly series. We had taken a quick break over the festive period. It ended up being a bit longer than intended. Liam was away, then I had my booster jab and I was ill. Then it was Christmas. Liam was ill, so it was a whole big thing. But we're starting
Yay.
2022 on the first day of 2022, returning with more Doctor Who. And we're in series 4. Episode 3, Planet of the Ood. If you've missed the other episodes, the other 30 odd episodes, they're all on the channel. You can go back and have a look at our opinions for a number of different episodes. But we are thoroughly getting stuck into the Doctor and Donna Noble as our traveling team.
Are we now?
Yeah, well, I mean, they do get
It's a
stuck
different
into
kind of
predicaments.
show. I don't know what episode you watched online, but
yeah, that's why it was weird. I thought they didn't look like the real actors. We are firmly moving into their era of the show, and we are on episode 3 of their first series. And yeah, I mean, this one, the Ood return. Obviously, the title of the episode is Planet of the Ood, and you know, we see how they're created. We get some more backstory to them. Obviously, there's some unethical practices, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yes,
for the business that provide the Ood. But I honestly, really, with this episode, I just cannot believe how political they were getting. There was just, you know, it was all about human slavery and all about maybe even the environment and veganism and all of that. And I can't believe they've done that.
ridiculous.
Doctor Who being political, never. That's only happened recently.
Yeah.
I kid, because there were some serious topics in there, and I think some of them were handled fairly well, if not a little bit, you know, hit over the head with the metaphor. Which, you know, fine. It's a kids show. They have to be, you know, they have to emphasize the point that it's bad. It can't be left to like, oh, is it? Because that will confuse kids even more. But yeah, what did you think of the episode overall?
I liked it. I think the second half was a lot better than the first half for me. I did feel myself a bit bored with the first half. But you know, that's just because it's all set up and we know the mystery coming into this episode again anyway. So it's not like, oh, what could it possibly be? And even then the payoff to that mystery, I'm a bit. So yeah, it's fun. I like seeing the Ood again. I think they're a really cool design and it was a smart choice to revisit them, I think. Because there's a lot of unanswered questions with them after the Impossible Planet, and they could have left it, but I do like that we are revisiting it because save some budget on costumes, I suppose.
I mean, they probably made some more Oods.
I mean,
maybe
some
not.
new ones.
Yeah, maybe.
They definitely would. I'd be very surprised if they didn't make new ones. But yeah, overall, yeah, it was a fun little outing. I think I mean, Pfizer Pompeii got very heavy. This one also got quite heavy. So I like that Donna's just like, oh, I finally found the Doctor again.
Everything's depressing.
And then she has two of the most depressing storylines in the world following it. But it's fine because she doesn't remember them now. So, but that's okay. Yeah, it's a good episode overall. I think they do some good stuff with it. I think the Doctor and Donna are really fun in it, as they often are together. They definitely carry a lot of it. And yeah, I don't rate it as highly as I thought I was going to, but I still quite liked it. I do prefer Pfizer Pompeii. I think the general consensus is people prefer Planet of the Ood, but
yeah, I did see that.
I do like Pfizer Pompeii. But yeah, it was still a really good episode. So series 4 is continuing the trend of being very solid.
Yeah, I would say solid is a pretty good comment for it. I think for me, it's probably just an average episode. You know, I'd say there's nothing in here that, you know, blows me out of the water and it's like, wow, that's so new for the show, or wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, there are a couple of things in there that I like. And I think also for me, you know, if it was a different Doctor companion duo, I don't know if it would work so well. I think sort of our lead actors sort of sell it and make it work better than it probably should have been at times.
Yeah.
Especially because I've got some concerns around the supporting cast, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But yeah, it does tackle some heavy themes. And I think it mostly deals with that okay. Probably heavier themes than last week. Last week, Fires of Pompeii, which is fine. You know, every episode of Doctor Who kind of tries to tell a message of some kind. And this one can be quite obvious at times, but at the same time, it's quite good. And you know, it's a returning monster, not a villain, really. They're a creature or a monster, and everyone loves the Ood. Like, you know, you ask somebody what they think about the Ood, no one will say, "Oh, they're the worst. They're the worst thing in Doctor Who ever," because they're not. They even returned in Flux, you know, for a couple of scenes. So they have a lasting impression, and I'm glad we have this episode to sort of expand on them, which is good. As always, when we are reviewing an episode, we try to have 3 positives and 3 negatives. We always start with the positives. We always head on into the negatives, because that's just how it always works. I don't know. Maybe we're just more glass half empty than glass half full. But what can you do? We are British.
I am.
That's what happens. So what is your first positive of the episode?
The song scene when Donna hears the Ood song. That was easily my favorite part of the episode. That was kind of the scene I was waiting to happen as well, because it was all in the trailers, that shot of Donna crying, and like, what's all that about? And now we know. Well, I already knew, but it was a really strong scene, I felt. And that's when I think the episode really kicked off for me, because it got to, okay, this is the point of the episode now. This is what we're building up to. And I just like the idea that the Doctor could always hear that. And that was Donna to hear it. Not the last time he's going to have to put his fingers on her and mix with her head.
Dear.
But yeah, I thought Catherine Tate's really great in that scene when she kind of finally hears it, and the truth is revealed, and it's kind of emotionally disturbing for her and all of that. Because I think they even have a line about it, but the Doctor's so busy in series 2 when the Ood are about that they don't really have time to focus on them and their story and everything with that. So I like that we kind of have that moment to show that humanity is the biggest monster of them all.
No.
Never been done before with anything.
No, definitely not in sci-fi either.
Definitely not in sci-fi. But, I think it's done fairly well here with that. And just the song itself, I think maybe it's because this all circles back to when 10 regenerates and the Ood song and the song ending and Ood Sigma showing up and everything. But yeah, I think just the music that they chose for this particular moment, I thought was very powerful. The fact that the Ood themselves, they don't really have that voice, and they've given that onto Donna and the Doctor, kind of explaining things, because they're kind of seeing it instead. I just thought it was a really well acted sequence. Very poignant, very sad and tragic, and it kind of gets us in the position where we're not like, what the fuck did they do to that guy at the end of the episode? Because this is kind of like the justification for that mainly.
Yeah, sure.
So it is kind of the big emotional turning point, and I think it's performed very well.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Although not in my positives, I do quite like the scene, especially because that's sort of the moment where Donna's sort of in the moment. She's like, this is terrifying and horrible. I don't want to do this anymore, please. But then once they save the day and they get the feeling of, yay, we did it, she's like, nah, that was just in the moment. Which is fair. I wish they would show companions in that situation more, because there's a lot of things that happen that must be like, I can't do this anymore. But I also like the fact that after seeing them captive, that was like, oh, I need to go home. And then when the man turns into nude, she's like, let's keep going. It's like, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's fair. And sort of my first one links into that. It's the sort of relationship between the Doctor and Donna. I think it was very well done in their first scenes in this episode, when they're in the TARDIS saying, we could be anywhere, and they're both getting excited, and then she goes out, and then he's going this big speech, and then she's gone back inside. She's like, oh, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And they have just the good like the banter between them. It feels natural. It feels like they were riffing on set as actors rather than that being written, which is something that I mean, it's probably not true. It's probably written in there, that dialogue, but it could be. You get the feeling that that's all them. They know the characters well enough to be able to do that, which I don't think we've had yet in the show.
I really like the scene where the Doctor's like, well, who do you think buys your clothes? And she tells him off for like making a low blow. That's like so funny. He just like takes the piss because she buys her stuff in Primark.
And then even when like they were like chained up and she's like making the other guy feel bad and he's like, oh, very good. It's like, thank you. It's like, it's just the way that they sort of work together, I think, is done very well in this, and it works all the way through the series. You know, I think we've already said the past 2 episodes, I think they've been up there for both of us, and I think that will continue, except for when they're not in the same episode together, which I think is probably fair enough. But I think in the episode,
it's hard to enjoy the relationship when it's not there. In an episode,
I mean, maybe, you know, you never know. You might enjoy the best bits of Midnight, but might be the bit where where they're talking on the phone.
Sure.
Or the best, you know, the best bit of Turn Left could be that bit at the end where the TARDIS just says battle, 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 everything, you know.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Don't forget that.
Forget that they forget completely in the very next episode.
Don't forget that happened. But yeah, I think their relationship's great. You know, it feels like they've been traveling for ages, which again, they might have been, you know, we don't know how long it's been between Pompeii and Ood. That could be the bit where every single book and audio adventure that they do is in that space between those two. So they could have been traveling together for a year or so, who knows, but it's great to see, and I really enjoyed it, so it's definitely the high point for me. So what is your second positive?
The expansion on the Ood lore.
Same. I put Ood exploration.
Sweet Ood lore.
Yeah, just what we were all clamoring for.
Yeah, exactly.
Naveen? No. Ood.
Hell yeah. But yeah, we kind of already briefly spoke about it, but they didn't really have a chance to get into the nitty-gritty of what the Ood are all about in Impossible Planet, that 2-parter, you know, because they had the devil to deal with.
Yep.
So I guess
she makes reference of in this, and she's like, shut up. Don't take the piss.
You idiot. But yeah, I really like that they ended up having this idea for a story and actually going with it and just taking some time to see where the Ood came from, how they are the way they are with their killer orbs.
Well, no, hang on a minute. Their orbs don't get explained as to why they can kill people.
No,
they just go, how are they being used?
Yeah. Don't know. And we never find out. But I just, I was going to say that they absolutely played themselves by inventing those and giving them to the Ood, and then ironic deaths galore. But yeah, it just happens, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Maybe we'll get a story in series 14.
That's what Jodie's last special is.
Yeah. She gets
her and an Ood talking.
Yeah. She slips and falls onto an orb, and that's how it happens. Unfortunately. Sad way to go, but it is what it is. But yeah, just getting the chance to explore, you know, the slavery of the Ood and you know, the darkness that comes with that. Humans are bad, we know. And yeah, like the fact that they're born with their brains outside their bodies gets cut off and replaced, and all of that stuff, just expanding on where that all came from. Because I think, you know, you see a lot of creatures in Doctor Who, they come and go. You don't necessarily spend so much time on their origins in this way. So I like that they did take the time to do it for the Ood, because I guess they just had a good story for it, so that makes sense to do it. And yeah, we kind of get to see where they come from, and a few little classic references there to the censor rights, which is fun. And yeah, it's nice to take some time and in quite an emotional way as well, expand on a creature that we had seen a couple of years before.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it is a case of we don't often get like this level of detail towards a creature or a villain or a monster, you know. The Cybermen and like Daleks aside, because they're the iconic ones, you know, we know everything sort of there is to know about their history and their origins. You know, everything else we don't really get a hint at. It's just they were here, and then there's a line about they came from here and that kind of stuff. But to sort of get the whole, oh yeah, here's how the Oods work. Here's why they're slaves. Here's how bad it is that they're slaves. Here's the conditions they're kept in. You know, and you know, obviously that's where the metaphor comes in of all kinds of different slavery throughout human history. You know, even ongoing modern slavery, and it's not a subtle metaphor, but it makes sense to make this story about the Ood for comparison, rather than introduce a brand new sort of species and try and do it that way. You know, they've got a ready-made example that they can pull from, and it helps that the Doctor also has a personal experience with them in the fact that he sort of just forgot about them the same way that everyone sort of else has forgotten about them. They're just seen as a product rather than a species, and it's good that they get reframed in this way in this episode, especially at the end, where they're sort of seen as a sort of higher civilization than what the humans sort of drag them down to be. They're telepathic. They can, and at least it's revealed in End of Time at the very least that they can see through time to some extent. I think even there's a line in the End of Time explaining how that can happen because of being set free. They've like even gone even further into their evolution. And it's great. It's great that they sort of have this rounded story. And it's not something that often gets done, I think, in Doctor Who. Again, maybe it's because some people will be, and I can imagine at the time, probably some people were annoyed that they did this story and it had these themes, because people always seem to get annoyed when they do these stories and have these themes. But looking back on it now, it's something that Doctor Who's been doing the whole, throughout its whole show, is putting these messages out there. And it's good that they sort of did this with the Ood, who I think were justified in this episode in breaking out and killing loads of people. Which often you don't say, hey, yeah, let them kill people, but in this situation maybe you're like, yeah, the humans keeping them slaves probably did kind of deserve this. But yeah, that I agree, and that was my second positive as well. So what was your final positive?
Halpen's fate and his transformation.
Save.
Oh, that bald man. Oh no.
Literally no.
Fucking horrible.
I didn't realize how terrifying it was until I watched it and went, oh my God.
And I've got a fun fact about it. It was going to be even worse.
Oh, I wish they did. It did feel like it was trimmed down.
They filmed it and it was even worse, and they cut those of it out. But Jesus, we like peels. I'd forgotten how nasty that was. But yeah, maybe like the bits they cut, I don't know, maybe it was all his face
must
concaving.
Be like
his bone structure must have completely changed, and maybe it's something to do with that. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, release
the Halpen cut, BBC. Come on.
Hashtag release the Halpen cut. Yeah, we want to see that grossness, please.
Yeah,
but
please.
Yeah, I like how they set it up with the hair tonic throughout the episode. But it's just Ood Sigma being a patient, sly little shit, and we love him. And yeah, how that all kind of comes out, because he's like, it makes sense that it starts happening when he's in close proximity to Big Brain Boy. So that's when it really all comes out. And oh my God, just when he like leans down and starts peeling it away, and then the fronds come out of his mouth,
and then a brain at the end.
And then it was just like, we'll look after him. And he's just so chill. I love it. I like the idea that, some Ood just became rabid over it. Some Ood just like started killing people. But with Sigma, he just became very patient. It was like,
I love that idea. Fuck with them.
Yeah. And, we just seen the guy murder someone else. We're like, well, he deserves this now. So it's fine. And yeah, I did enjoy. I mean, did I enjoy it? It's gross, but it looks really cool, like the effect of him peeling his scalp away. And I think it's a nice ending to the character. He becomes the thing that he mistreated for so long. And that's kind of the symbolism of, the freedom of the Ood is him actually turning into one. And the peacefulness of their race, and the fact that, well, we'll just look after him now. It's not going to be an act of revenge or anything. And they're just going to like torture this Ood and then kill him even after they turned him into one. And he's just going to be one of them now, and maybe he can learn to not be a dickhead. So yeah, I thought that was horrible to watch, but in the best way. Really cool kind of end to his character. And yeah, it's a great showcase again of the Ood's intelligence, their patience, but also their kind of kindness to not just make a fool out of him and then kick him into the brain or something. They're actually going to take him under their wing. So I really like how that character arc ends for Halpen.
Yeah, I think sometimes, most of the time when Doctor Who does like body horror, it works quite well. This is very reminiscent of the gas mask zombie like transformation in series 1. And it looks really good. And I did get the sense that they cut a bit out because the editing was slightly off, I think, in that scene. But it doesn't take away how disgusting it is, where like you see like the the liquid that was obviously in his brain like come out as he lifts it up. And I think it, it's foreshadowed. I think the only issue I have is the fact that why would he keep asking for hair tonic? Is it just like an addiction? Maybe. Or I think it would have been better maybe if the dude was sort of like, here you go, have some. This is your regular hair tonic, take it. Maybe rather than him constantly ask for it, but that's a minor thing. I have a couple of issues with I think helping by himself, but I do agree that the ending of him and sort of where he could go next and sort of how he now has to live his life is the one thing that he not despised, but always felt resent towards and mistreated as a product. I think is excellent way to sort of to round him out, which is good. Yeah, I think it was definitely a satisfying conclusion for him, at least.
Yes.
Have you got any other positive points you want to hit on before we move on?
My other one would have been the Doctor and Donna's relationship as well. I really like those two together a lot. They're a lot of fun in this one.
Yeah.
And even in like the slower moments when it's all like build up and they're just, showing the lead off in the presentation stuff, they do have some great moments together. So that would be my other big one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also quite like the little bits of foreshadowing they do in this episode. Dr. Donna being the big one, obviously, which doesn't. I mean, I think in the series finale is pointing out like, hey, the dude said that, and that's kind of a bit like you don't need to say that line. Yeah, like,
that adds nothing.
You don't need to say that line.
That changes absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, it's as we've just seen in Flux, it's a thing like, hey, you're going to regenerate. Wink. Keep an eye out for that.
In about 18 months, you're screwed.
Yeah. But I liked the little bits of foreshadowing there and the fact that they were like, yeah, we'll always remember you, Donna, and all that kind of stuff. And then like, oh, but she's not going to remember you.
Yeah,
kind of thing. I do quite like how that sort of all ties in now that you sort of know where it's
retroactively
going.
That's a lot more kind of like, oh no.
And I imagine part of that was Russell going, hey, just add in like a little tweak here, just add in a little line there, because it seems too coincidental for it to not have been purposeful. But yes, we'll come on to the negatives now, because I have a couple. I'll shoot mine first. The supporting cast,
right?
Specifically, no, first of all, he goes, then he goes, ah.
Oh, I hated that more than anything.
So yes, it's Kess. He doesn't have a first name. Okay. It's just Commander Kess, and Solana as well. They just weren't great. They both they
just weren't.
They're not anymore at least.
That's true.
Yeah, they were just like your cliche, stereotypical, or at least Kess was just cliche, stereotypical bad guy, gruff man. Who didn't really have anything to do. Yeah, I think it's satisfying that he gets killed by the thing he was using to kill the Ood. But I just don't think he wasn't needed, really. I think the whole scene with the crane and him like trying to get the Doctor with the crane, I just think it was unnecessary. They could have just had they could have just had the security guards come out and grab them and come back, because they all end up in handcuffs in an office anyway. So it's just a bit unnecessary, and the character isn't intriguing enough as a villain. It's like they basically just needed a disposable character to show that they were going to kill people this week. They're not going to all survive. And I also dislike Solana just because I think there's issues with how does she have so much power in this office place when she's only the PR manager. The PR manager is not the same as the manager, which she seems to be. She seems in control of like everything, even from like the security guards reporting to her and her telling Kess to like not kill him. I'm like, surely Kess would be higher than you, with him being like head of security or whatever. But and then I'm always torn on whether or not I like that she like betrayed the Doctor and was like, oh, they're over here, because I think it's a missed opportunity for her to like turn. But I guess it also like subverts your expectations, because you think that's what she's going to do, but then she goes against it. So I'm kind of hit or miss on it because I don't think she's as good a character as they wanted her to be, enough for you to be like, I'm glad she didn't, she's an interesting villain. I'm glad she was still evil, or I'm gutted that she didn't turn because she was so nice, that kind of thing. It felt like they could have easily been one character as well. They didn't need to be the same person, two different people. And then also, I'll come on to it later on as well, but Dr. Ryder was also pretty tame, I thought. But Halpin was good. I like the actor that plays him. I think he hams it up quite nicely.
He does, yeah.
And I think that's fine. I think there's a little bit of an inconsistency with his character, like where he just goes, "Oh, go away, you Sigma. Go and be with your people." I'm like, that doesn't make any sense for your character to dismiss him.
Very strange, especially because Sigma just needs to be by his side for the ending.
Yeah,
anyway. Just
goes away and goes, "I'll go back then." Like, okay then.
Especially because they know what they're going to do with Halpin. They want you to hate him, so that you're like, "Oh, that's a justified."
Yeah.
Why are you having him be nice to one then?
Yeah, and then it doesn't make sense. Maybe it would have worked better if Sigma was then to go back upstairs and release the Doctor and Donna, but he doesn't. They just get out, I think, by themselves because the other Oods stopped killing them. And then he leads them to Halpin in the end. But maybe if he went up and said, "Hey, we need to go and do this. He's gonna kill my big brain. Let's go." But what can you do?
That was also my favorite line in the episode, was them trying to get out the handcuffs. The Doctor's complaining about them, and Donna's like, "Well, at least we've got quality."
Yeah.
So good.
But yeah, so I just think the supporting cast is probably the weakest, and then you've also got the extras, the businessmen, where it's like, exactly. The businessman was like, "Oh, looks like he's getting. Are you feeling all right? Oh no! Oh, whoops! Oh, for God's sake!
You made him sad."
Yeah,
and the woman who just runs into one of the oars. So good.
I noticed that they didn't do the throwing flying zappiness in this as much.
No,
it was very much like I'm going to tap you with it. But sure, why not? But yeah, supporting cast not great. Unfortunately, which was a shame. After we've had, especially last series with decent supporting casts, but so far I think the series supporting cast hasn't been the high point. Unfortunately, Peter Capaldi aside, yeah, it did. It really did. But it's fine. We've got Freeman back next week, so we'll be all right.
That's true.
So what is your first negative?
The claw sequence.
Nice. Yep.
Yes. I hate it. They really try to make it seem like it's a big deal. It's there to put in a trailer. Right? It adds nothing. Kez is awful. And I just it's laughable. I'm like, there's no tension here. I know the music's telling me to be tense. Like, it's the Doctor. They're gonna be fine. And even when he is like somehow cornered by this fuck off massive claw thing, there's so much space around him, and the way the claw's designed, if it just slammed down, it would just get stuck on the floor.
I assume they just
touch him anyway.
They want to pinch it.
You'd have to then close it, so he still have time to escape.
Yeah.
So maybe if it had cornered him in like an enclosed space, he would have seemed like he was in danger. But I'm like, that's just gonna go ting perfectly around him.
Yeah.
And all the cuts to Kez are just no. And
working the little joystick, pushing his little buttons, do it, not even holding it. He's like got it like using his palms. I'm like, oh.
I know some people just need an action sequence every week to actually get involved and say that's a good episode or whatever. But I just feel like, and I appreciate it's inventive in a way, but I was just like, this is laughable. I'm not enjoying.
It felt like a mini game in like some AAA game that didn't need to be there.
This would have been in the Wii game. I could see this absolutely happening in a game like that, but in the actual show, I don't know if it worked quite as well. Like, there were just bigger things going on. Then why do we need this? The Doctor to be chased by a giant.
Just conveniently put Donna in the container. There you go. Yeah, leave her in there so we can have this big crane run thing.
Like, maybe if he like picked up the containers and like started throwing them at the Doctor or something. Like, you want. Like, all the action sequences, I think, just completely unearned. Like, especially the explosion behind the Doctor and Donna as well. When that happened. Like, why? Just to put in the trailer. Like, no, I don't think any of the action in this episode is earned, and I don't think you need it. So, very bizarre sequence, but it is what it is. I'm sure the kids loved it, so what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. God, I bet you loved it at the time. Now you're like, God,
No, I've never loved it. I always remembered hating Kiss.
Fair enough, I understand. My sort of second negative does lead on to that point as well. It's the CGI for this episode.
Right.
It's not used often, but when your big action set piece is a big CGI crane, it doesn't necessarily help. I think it looks the best when it's hanging over the Doctor at the end and stopped. I think that's when it looks the best. But when it's flying, it just looks useless. Not to mention the big rocket at the start, and then all like the big external shots of the base that aren't like filmed on location. It just doesn't look great. But I think that part of that is product of the time. It is what at the time, 12, 15 years ish, something like that.
13 years ago. Yeah.
There you go. So it won't have aged well, but part of me thinks you need to know that making the episode, you need to know if your CGI heavy scene is that gonna look good in 10 years time. But yeah, CGI issues will always come up in the show, for aging reasons and budgetary reasons. But because it's a scene that doesn't need to happen, I think the CGI is worthy of criticism in this.
Yeah, true.
So what is your second negative?
Yes, I already talked about it briefly already, so I don't need to go into too much detail, but I do think it had quite a slow start for me. I was a bit like, but I think that does come from just rewatching the episodes and like, okay, I want them to get to the emotional good bit now. Because I do think the second half of the episode is infinitely better than the first half.
You mean you don't like the Homer Simpson ood?
I mean,
or the sexy lady ood.
The sexy lady ood is quite something. Like, at the end of the day, if you're going to get turned on by an ood saying that, I don't think you even need the voice, because you just got some issues with the ood anyway. Like that's not going to improve it. If anything, that'll make it worse.
Yeah, it's not. That's not the one thing holding you back there. Come on.
Yeah. I don't mind the Homer Simpson joke. I think that's fine. But
I think
sexy lady.
Wearing a Simpsons jumper. But I think the Simpsons joke at least holds up because the Simpsons is still running. But I think
this was just as it's starting to get bad. I think because it was just after the movie came out.
This did it. This episode.
This is what killed it. Yeah.
But I do think the sexy lady I think is slightly sexist.
That one I have more of an issue with. Yeah.
Especially because like something for the men. So for God's sake. Okay. Whatever. God. But yes, yeah. So the start of the episode, not a big fan.
But yeah, I think if it's your first time watching it, it wouldn't be so bad. But rewatching the episode again, knowing where it all goes and stuff, I'm just like, come on, please. Like the Doctor and Donna carried the first half of the episode. I think.
Yes, I think with their relationship and sort of seeing the ood in the snow as well, I think was a nice scene.
Yeah, I like that scene.
Even if it is a big ooh and then dies again, like you don't.
I like Donna taking the oar to like speak into it.
Yeah.
It feels very realistic that someone would do that because she got to know. So I like that a lot.
No, it was good.
I do the same and get electrocuted.
Oh no! I still read at that exact point. Oh no!
I saved myself. I've had a lovely time.
Yeah, fair enough though. I do think the first sort of half is a bit meh. Even the like cold open is a bit like, oh no, generic businessman number one. Whatever.
Oh no, this guy's an asshole. What are we going to do about him?
Here's another generic businessman who looks almost exactly the same, if not slightly thinner.
And bolder.
I think my sort of final negative is the twist that Dr. Ryder was like an activist.
Right.
It's just not set up anywhere.
I've got a fun fact about this.
Oh, excellent.
They cut the scene that set it up.
Okay, right. So there's like he gives like a look to the ood brain when they're like, whoops. Well, no, not even to the ood brain. Wow. I mean, he gives a look to the ood brain to like, oh, that's what it's like. But that's what everyone would do. But he gives like a look to the ood when he's like, whoops, better kill this rabid one. He's like, oh no. But oh no, which I think there's more.
Wait, please don't.
There's more emotion in Ood Sigma when they say kill that Ood than there is in Dr. Ryder. So I just think it's just not. It's not. There's nothing in the episode that says, hey, this guy might be on the good guy side, like they only mentioned the Friends of the Ood, like what, in the third act, at the start of the third act when the Doctor and Donna are chained up. Obviously they got a mention in series 2, but there's nothing set up to be like, hey, there might be some other one working here, and it's like, and then at the end he's like, aha, I have done it, and it's like, nope. So
we're gonna stand against this railing and tell you how for 10 long years I finally gotcha.
But it's like, first of all, like, at least wait until the situation is diffused to be like, I've got you. And then it just feels like there are two plans going against this man, and it feels weird that they never like converged. The Ood Sigma would never work with the Doctor or Dr. Ryder to like get him.
Yeah,
but
get him.
And it's also very like tenuous in the fact that it's like, oh yeah, after 10 years I was finally able to get into this one room on this exact day and spend the exact right amount of time on that exact monitor that I knew was there but didn't know what was in this room to do what I needed to do, but I didn't know what it was I was doing. To reveal the brain, because I don't know, it's not said if he knows there's a brain there. It's all implied that he's seeing it for the first time, but it's not implied whether they knew that there was a third brain. Maybe Friends of the Ood did like a study and they knew that could be a possibility, so they had a contingency plan. But it's just very like, there's just nothing there. There's no base work there. He's just a character that's like, yes, I was a good guy all along, and then dies. It's like, oh, it's fine.
Sucked into the brain.
Yeah, I think they made the reveal of him being a good guy bigger than what it was in the episode. Again, maybe if they filmed the scenes and if it all went out.
But to be fair, even with the deleted scene, there's no setup for him in particular.
Excellent.
It's just they introduced the Friends of the Ood a lot earlier, like referenced it a lot earlier. But there's no setup for him.
Yeah, so it's not. It feels like they want it to be a bigger thing, and it was almost as if they were like, "Hey, did you notice this guy was a good guy?" And I was like, "No, I wasn't. I didn't even realize he was in the scene. What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah, you're here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean that's. It's just, I think it just goes in with the supporting cast being a bit bland and a bit pointless in this episode. I just don't think they were all necessary. But yeah, anyway, what was your final negative?
Yeah, this one I'm like, it's fine, but I just feel a bit weird about it. I don't know how I feel about the giant Ood brain being like what's the main thing.
Big brain.
I've always found it just a bit weird and dumb. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's fine, whatever, because sure, the aliens, I guess, there's a giant brain here. But I am a bit like, feels a bit weird.
But what else would it be? A giant Ood face? A giant Ood? An Ood?
Just an extra brain, sure, but does it need to be like the size of a giant ass room and all CG and swallows a guy whole?
Yeah, I think swallowing the guy whole is a bit weird.
The electricity all around it. It's just when they're like, the Doctor and Donna like looking down at it and explaining, like, how are you not laughing your asses off at this?
Because there's nothing there.
Brain.
There's nothing there. When they're making it, there's nothing there. So.
But I don't know, it just the image of a giant brain, I just don't know how I feel about it being the thing. Like, this is why this is all happening. It does feel a bit, I don't know if it really quite gels with the Ood as well, especially because this is the episode that introduces like they did
the
have
only
a
episode
here.
We see it as well. We never see the big brain again.
It's under threat of all those things blowing up, and the Doctor just goes, hey.
I did it.
He didn't even turn them all off. He just turned one off and they all go down.
Thank God.
There's like there's only 3 episodes that are like 3 minutes left, so that's fine. But yeah, again, I've put it last and I put a question mark next to Ood brain. So I just, even after all these years, it's never quite sat right with me. I mean, it's fine as a solution, but I don't know. I find giant brain a little bit dumb, but it's fine.
Yeah. I think for me, it gave off big nesting conscious vibes. That's effectively what the whole. It's almost scene comparison, big CGI brain blob at the bottom, Doctor talking to the villain at the top. Something falls into the big thing. Well, it's not saved, but problem is solved in front of big thing. But yeah, I mean, it's like, can the brain move? Does it just sit? How does it reproduce? Is it just a thing? Is it like the internet where it's just there? Because it's obviously there to be just to connect all the Oods. You know, it's the telepathic part of them. That's what that is. But where does that come from? Does it ever die? If that dies, does the whole Ood race die? You know, what's the situation there? It was very much just like a, hey, they have a third brain which connects them. That's all you need to know, and that's all we're going to tell you. And then they left. Yeah, I don't think I have necessarily too big of a problem with it, but it's just like, yeah, fine, sure, you needed another thing to be like, hey, there's another thing we need to take care of to
it felt like the first idea they had and they just ran with it. I don't know.
It's like you can easily split this episode into first act, translation ball, second act, palm brain, third act, big brain.
Big brain.
There's literally, that's the transition through it. They get bigger brains as it goes along. But yeah, I think I do agree. And then sort of my additional negative is just that this episode just sort of felt average, I guess. Which, you know, is a strange negative to put down, that it's just average. But you know, it was.
Yeah, I think it's because it's one that's very, very well regarded, I think, in fandom. Yeah. And I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying I'd never watch it again and that I didn't enjoy it. I liked it, but it's not, you know, it does nothing new, really. You know, it's your classic Doctor Who episode. They turn up somewhere, there's a problem, they solve it, they leave.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably what a filler episode would normally be, but this isn't a filler episode in terms of...
If it was like a new race with the same story and they just didn't reuse the Ood, I don't think it would be as like well looked on.
Yeah, planet of the Sensorites. Let's go.
Hooray.
Reintroduce them. Oh, that's what the Ood are now. The Sensorites will never return. The Ood wiped them out.
Well, I mean, they've got a B&M bargain set this year, so...
Oh, there you go. That's what the finale is going to be. Jodie's last episode. Sensorites. Oh, imagine. What scenes that would be. Oh,
everyone would be like, wow, who are they?
No, people are like, who the hell are they? They're not New Who. That's not Russell stuff.
Oh, I want something original.
Oh, I don't want classic Who. I want new things. Gives you new things. I want old things.
This is a disrespectful to William Hartnell's legacy. Bring back William Hartnell alien. Oh, I can't believe we're doing this.
Oh God, absolutely ridiculous. Before we get to before we spiral too far out of control, have you got any other negatives you want to sort of pop on?
I don't think so. But shout out to Kez for being terrible.
Yes, he was. He's just. I just don't. I think even in Battles in Time they have like Kez, and then don't they have Kez attacking or wit or something like that?
Yeah,
it's like, for God's sake, you don't need this. He doesn't need to be in the episode. Get rid of him. But yeah, never mind. So in that case, what fun facts have you got?
Yes, I have facts. They are fun.
Woohoo!
So the snow scenes were shot in the middle of summer using shreds of paper for fake snow. So the idea of poor Catherine Tate in that big ass coat.
Oh no!
In August, like, help me.
Well, I noticed in Fires of Pompeii as well. You could see their cold breath when they're in the very hot cave. I was like,
yeah,
what's going on here, lads? Film them the other way around.
Yeah, so that was hilarious. And she's always reminded by how hot that must have been, because that was the outfit they made her action figure in for some reason. Halpin's transformation into an Ood was originally far more graphic. After the footage was viewed, it was re-edited to be less horrific for a family audience.
Understandable.
So #release the Halpin cut. This is the first episode to be produced by a woman since 1965.
A woman producing my Doctor Who?
A woman? How dare they? What is this? We talked about this last week, but this was originally episode 2 of the series, but they ended up swapping it with Fires of Pompeii because apparently Pompeii was like super heavy, so I wanted to get out of the way. And this one's not heavy, apparently.
Monday slavery? Nah,
it's fine.
It's fine. People just watch that every day. It's fine.
Yes. A scene where the Doctor and Donna meet Halpin and the presentation was cut, including a proper introduction to the idea of the Friends of the Ood, leaving it ultimately as a throwaway mention in the final act of the episode. Halpin's also very suspicious of the Doctor and Donna, and gets what's her face to run a background check on them, which is why later in the episode she reports being like, they failed this background check.
Yeah, because I was like, why would you let them in without doing a security check? That was like in my notes. I was like, what?
So that's why she did that, because he told her to do it in the deleted scene.
Right.
They decided to have Halpin kill Ryder, so audiences thought he deserved to be turned into an Ood, because they basically cut so many scenes of him being horrible.
And then they left in the one scene of him being nice to his Ood. People were like, oh,
yeah,
maybe.
There's also like an extended scene of them watching the security footage of that guy at the start dying. And he's like, God, that guy was an idiot, and we're not going to give his insurance payout to his family. And they cut that as well. So I'm like, stop cutting the bits where he's actually properly mean.
Yeah.
And leaving in him being like, go, Ood, be free.
Stop cutting out the good bits, for God's sake.
Stop cutting out the good scenes. This was originally going to be a two-parter, but they felt the story would flow better if not overcomplicated. It's probably a wise decision. Imagine 2 episodes of Kes.
I think that they probably would have left it when the Doctor was being chased by the crane and Donna was stuck in the container. That feels like it would have been a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Container? I barely know her. Russell T. Davies mentioned during production of Series 2 that the Ood could be related to classic aliens, the Sensorites, hence the sense sphere mentioned in this episode. So
they call this one the Ood sphere as well, don't they?
Hell yes, they do. Ida Scott from the Impossible Planet 2-part was originally going to be a main character in this episode, part of a team investigating the Ood sphere. Her storyline involved discovering her estranged father was involved with Ood operations, though it would have later transpired that he was actually working on behalf of the Ood. This ultimately did not end up happening for unknown reasons.
Oh, that would have been better.
That'd have been fun because I really liked Ida.
Yeah.
And then some cut scenes in the episode included the extended sequence of them watching that guy die, a cave sequence where the Doctor was searching for the Ood brain, and a scene where the Doctor points out that they could just use robots instead of Ood, and technicians backed him up, pointing out that robots are very cheap and effective nowadays. All of them cut for time. All of them.
It's like a very strange additional scene, that one.
That's why I cut it.
That feels very much like somebody like wanted to promote robots for like their company. Like, hey, look, I'm trying to win a big thing. If Doctor Who can say robots are good, that would be great.
Yeah, I think it would have really undercut, I think, what they were going for with the episode. Yeah. Like, all of this is pointless. Let's get robots in. Why is there so
the Ood are worthless. Just they're not worth anything. Yeah, fair enough.
There you go.
Oh, Christ. Well, thank you very much for the fun facts.
You're welcome.
And it leads us on to the last thing to do this week, which is rate the episode out of 10. What are you going to give it?
I went for a 7. Average. It's fine.
Yeah, I went for a 6, which, again, because I think both of our rating systems skew at some point. 6 is average for me.
Yeah.
The episode's great.
7. Five should be the average.
Yeah, should be.
Based on how numbers work. But, you know, the Doctor and Donna are good.
Yeah, based on how it is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, this is by no means like the worst, just fine episode we've watched.
No.
And, you know, it's nowhere near the worst episode of Doctor Who we've ever watched. Those obviously came back in Series 2.
Yes, that's true.
So I'm glad that we haven't hit those yet. Yeah,
at the end of the day, at a baseline level, I just enjoy Doctor Who.
yeah. Either way, normally
hence why I'm
0 is a 5
now.
It's really the ratings are 5 to 10. There's never normally.
This is completely destroyed canon. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, the Ood, how dare they? Oh, Senssphere was only a one planet solar system. They can't have another planet there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I just enjoy things. Like it's okay to enjoy things.
I just like the stuff. I don't need to go into everything thinking, what was bad about that? I liked it. Just let me like it. I liked Power Rangers 2016. Leave me alone.
Oh God. We've opened up some wounds here.
Oh God, I do need to rewatch it to make sure I do still like it. But I liked it when I saw it.
Oh God, no, it's terrible.
Yeah,
no, I've seen it online.
Don't put an apology video out next week. Guys.
You just like cut here right now. Like, this is future Connor. I would just like to say Power Rangers is bad.
I'm gonna go and watch Power Rangers after this. So for all we know, I'll come back in.
Fair enough.
If I don't come back in, I liked it.
This is the last episode of this series because Colin doesn't want to say that Power Rangers is bad.
Oh God. But yes, that is it for Planet of the Ood. Yeah, a good episode. We both enjoyed it. Next week, however, I cannot even remember the name. Is it the Sontaran Stratagem?
The Sontaran Stratagem.
Sontaran Stratagem is next week, episode 4. It sees Martha Jones return. It sees the Sontarans return.
Yeah.
It sees Unit return.
Yeah, and Wilf returns.
Yeah.
And Donna's mum's also there.
Yay. And Atmos is back.
Yay! And the guy from short-lived Philip Glenister show Demons is in it.
Woo-hoo!
Yay!
The guy from Plebs.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. Yes. Next week does see the Doctor and Donna be recalled to Earth by Martha Jones to investigate Atmos. I think they're a car manufacturer or a sat nav company, or both.
Sure.
A company that do stuff with cars.
A very vague company.
Yeah, and Martha's now working for UNIT. They're investigating this. There's also a school of very smart people, smart kids, run by the world's worst kid. And yeah, I mean, I remember quite liking this two-parter. What did you think of it when you first saw it?
I can't really remember. I feel quite similar. Maybe it's because it's written by the same person, but I feel very similar to the Dalek two-part in series 3. This one, I think it's okay. We'll see.
Fair enough. Yeah,
there's room for me to be pleasantly surprised, and that makes me excited to watch it.
Yeah, I think with the Sontarans returning in this as well, I'm excited to see how well their return holds up, especially after their recent appearance in Flux. So I remember quite liking it. I remember the use of UNIT in this because this was the first time we got like a proper look at UNIT in Doctor Who's revival. I think they only really had a brief mention in the Slitheen two-part, didn't they, in series 1? And and maybe a little bit in the series 3 finale.
I think they pop up briefly, but
but
nothing substantial like this.
Yeah, they've never been properly involved, and it's all very intriguing. I'm excited to see how it holds up, and also with it being a two-parter, how well the first part holds up. Because normally, as always, it's the case of we'll prefer one part over the other, and more often than not, it tends to be the second half, I think, because that's when stuff happens. But yes, it will be interesting to see how this goes. We should be back next week, bar one of us coming down with another illness, I guess. No,
I'm still ill, so hopefully not. But
better.
I'd be very unlucky. I immediately feel better and then get something else.
Classic.
We'll see.
But yeah, it is also when this comes out, it'll be New Year's Day, so we will have been out in the to celebrate the New Year's. So for all we know, we could be both coming down with COVID by the time we sit
Happy
down.
Eve of the Daleks Day.
Yay! Yeah. So all that is also a good point is that with Eve of the Daleks coming out today, when this goes out, me and Liam will be live reacting to it. I imagine we'll both be very hungover while we live react to it, but that'll be on his channel in the coming days whenever that goes up. Copyright compliance
please
dependent, and then we'll also have a little chat through on this channel as well moving forwards, hopefully, depending if we feel the need to discuss all of it, but we probably will, especially with us not getting much Jodie Whittaker action in 2022, unfortunately. But yeah, so plenty more Doctor Who to come. We should be back more regularly now after the Christmas period has sort of died down, which is good. Neither of us have much else to do with our spare time, so it's just the way life is at the minute, isn't it?
Sure.
Yay.
Well, great.
Mid-20s.
Nice bit of this, yeah. Yay, mid-20s. Yay. Life going nowhere.
Yay. But yeah, we'll be back later in the week with loads of other videos and stuff. So stick around and we'll see you then. Bye.